From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, today's tap is all about storytelling. Who doesn't like a good story? Your kids before bedtime, us as kids, but it doesn't end there. Businesses need a story. Big corporations need a story. It's not just a product, it's not just the stirs. There's a story behind the scenes, and who better to explain to us the importance of that storyline than the corporate storyteller? Not one of many, but the corporate storyteller, Steve Multer. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Lou, come on. Could you have set me up any better than that? Gentlemen, great to be with you. Love it. Few friends. We'll hang out. We'll chat. We'll have some fun. We'll talk corporate story, but I really appreciate being here.
We appreciate having you. So what is a corporate storyteller, Steve?
All right, so Lou, perfect way to start on that. Corporate storytelling started as a concept, and so a lot of your guests may have, your audience may have heard this before, but back in the late 1890s, a little company called John Deere that almost everybody knows. If you don't know it, North American tractor and farm equipment manufacturer, they came up with a concept that they called content storytelling at the time, which was this idea of instead of pitching product, what we want to do is create a connection with our target audience that goes deeper than the product, the solution, the service itself, that creates an equal, a parallel between the brand and the potential buyer that says, we understand you and you understand us. So we're not just going to try to pitch you, sell you something. We're not going to speak to the wallet. We're going to speak to the human being. And they called that content marketing in a publication called The Furrow. We'll jump ahead 100 years, 125, 30 years at this particular point. We have what we call corporate storytelling. And fundamentally, what it really just means is it's the idea of combining the details of your topic or your product or your brand with personal experiences, the beating heart of your brand that your audience can relate to, see themselves in, find value in, and become passionate about. That's what a good corporate story is meant to do.
So when you're storytelling for a company like Bayer, it's not about, well, there's a pharmaceutical here, but it's more about take this warm, fuzzy pill and it's going to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside and give you a good night's sleep.
I love that. Okay, so I'll say a half a yes and a half a no, right? We're going to go along with both of those. The no part of that is if you stay too fuzzy, if you get too much, oh man, our drugs are going to do such good things for you, and let me tell you how they're going to change your lives in a positive way. The buyer, so let's say in the case of Bayer, you've got a hospital administrator, you've got a team of doctors that you're speaking with, you've got an entire ecosystem of medical professionals. They're going to see right through that. We can't be strictly about the touchy-feely, right, and the fuzzy. However, on the other side of that coin, you remember, if you go back to high school or maybe college, do you remember the whole logos and pathos thing? Do you remember learning about that in school, those Greek fundamentals, just as a prepper, a reminder, because... You know, so logos being the capabilities, the numbers, the details, the strategic of your product. So if you're Bayer, you've got a lot of metrics, KPIs that are behind your products, and you need to share those numbers because they're vital and your audience wants to hear them. The pathos side is the why. It's the heart story behind that product that says, I don't just have a great product. I have a deep reason for believing that this is the right way to go. And I want to share that excitement and that passion with all of you so that you believe it's the right way to go as well. And the great corporate story blends your logos with your pathos. So you can put together the fuzzy with the details, and what you come together with is a story that's really going to land with your target audience and create value for them and ultimately create value for you. And that's whether you're an entrepreneurial startup or you're a massive corporation like Bayer.
Steve, I can't think of a sector where it has so much storytelling as the automotive manufacturers, because cars are so aspirational, right? They all have four wheels and they all have a steering wheel, but the purchaser of a Ferrari is very different than the purchaser of a Pinto. Walk us through those different storytelling from the $20 $20,000 utility vehicle to the $200,000 sports vehicle?
That is such a great question. All right, so think about passion brands for you personally, right? Matt for you, Lou for you, Steve for me, for everybody who is listening and watching in on your podcast right now. We connect with a product, with a market from an emotional perspective before we connect as a consumer perspective. And I always like to talk about, there are three hierarchies of informational intake. The average human being is hit by about 10,000 pieces of stimuli every single day. We are bombarded with bits of information flying at us all the time, right? So we have to naturally bin that content. We have to make knee-jerk decisions of which content is valuable to us and which is not. So I talk about high value bins, medium value bins, low value, no value binning. But if you think about it in terms of the first intake of that information, most companies go in the opposite direction of the natural flow of human information intake. So number one, we process anything that arrives of those 10,000 bits of stimuli. We process on a human level first. What matters to us? What matters to our value system, our moral system? What do we feel is worthy of being a high value bit of stimuli? Then we become the consumer. That's level number two. So if it makes it past the human, we go to the consumer. What do I feel like buying? And why do I feel like buying it? Why do I believe that that is worth my investment of time, money, emotion? If we can then make it past level two, then we go to number three. And number three is that we intake information as employees, as members of our organization, of our company. Most marketing goes the other way. They start at that employee, at that business level, and then they go to the consumer level, and the human is kind of discarded. It's at the end. And if you can flip that around, you win. So now let's put that in terms of car manufacturers, right? If I get out there and I'm a BMW guy, and all of a sudden somebody from Mercedes or from Audi or wherever it happens to be comes over to me and tries to pitch me on their vehicle, guess what? On a human personal level, sorry, I'm a BMW guy. If you just give me the metrics of your Mercedes, of your Audi, not interested. You know why? Because every one of your competitors has the metrics that say they have the best product. Theirs is the most powerful. Theirs is the one that you ought to buy. And the consumer gets confused. So now I've got all of these things, all which are excellent products, all of which say they are the best and give me the numbers to prove it. I'm not going to buy based on that criteria. I'm going to buy based on the human criteria first, consumer second, marketing third. So that's a very long answer to your very short question, but does that sort of guide you into the thinking?
No, it guides us unbelievably well, but it's even more diabolical than that, because I'll give you a crazy example. Like the Volkswagen SUV is same chassis, same engine as the Audi SUV.
Absolutely.
With probably a $20,000 discount. But that aspirational Audi driver wouldn't be caught dead with a Volkswagen, and the Volkswagen utilitarian wouldn't say, well, I'm not some crazy yuppie driving a fancy car, but it's the same car, just with a different bulb.
Bingo, right? Look at the Tesla 3, the Tesla Y. Same thing, same structure, same base, just larger body with a bit more space around it, higher price tag. You're 100% right on that, Lou. So when we go back to corporate story now, right? The corporate story, it's based on three pillars of communication that we can talk about, or we can skip right over there in the book or what have you. Those three pillars are value, passion, and connection. I'm not going to go into detail on them now, but a great corporate story paints a beautiful picture for the audience that you're trying to reach out to. That picture then invites them to be a part of it, to star, to be in the center of that particular picture or concept. So think about a company like Apple, right? Most valuable brand on the planet, as the three of us sit here and talk today. Apple is not out there pitching you on products. Even if you see a billboard, an Apple billboard up there, they don't talk about the product. You know what you see? You see a photo, and underneath that photo, it says, photo taken by this particular Apple customer. They don't highlight themselves. They don't highlight their product. They highlight the person who took the picture. They build community out of their corporate story. They tell a story that says, if you would like to be a part of an ecosystem that is clean, clear, interoperable, simple to utilize, sleek, cutting edge, the consumer looks at that picture and says, man, I want to star in that picture. How can I be a part of that? I want that for my life. Those are everything that I care about most. And the way to get there, I'm going to go out and buy an Apple product and become part of that ecosystem. Vehicles work in the same way. So you just perfectly laid it out. Audi, Volkswagen, owned by the same parent company. And a certain person wants to star in that beautiful picture of a bit more excess, being more cool. I made it. I've arrived. I have the cachet. I'm buying the Audi. And the other person says, no, my picture of success is that Volkswagen. I saved the money. I'm being better for the planet. I'm utilizing less capabilities. I have less bells and whistles. So when something breaks, my car doesn't have to go in for an $800 repair. It can go in for a $250 repair. And that's the picture that speaks to them. Knowing your target audience is a part of telling the right corporate story.
Now, Steve, the only companies that Matt and I love more than Cisco and Apple and Audi and Bayer are Peter's Plumbing and Joe's Jackhammer. They can't afford the billboard.
Right.
They can't afford the 30-second ad at the Super Bowl. But inevitably, for their client base, they still need to tell a story.
Yes.
How can we ratchet down that message a little bit with a few less zeros and also successfully tell a story?
Oh, man. Isn't that the target, guys? I mean, that really is what it's all about. All right. One of my favorite things that I ever saw, I was driving down the freeway in LA, and I looked over and there was a white panel van next to me. And it was for an electrician. And the name of this guy's company was We Show Up. We Show Up Electricians. And I thought, I don't know what. Oh, storytelling, right? All of a sudden, we want to go out and we want to rename our company We Show Up. And I thought, boy, if that's not brilliant corporate storytelling, I don't know what is. The smallest organization in the world, tiniest startup, I'm telling you, if you are Joe's Plumber and you are a one-man operation, you can tell your corporate story in as intelligent and effective way that Apple or Bayer or Audi or any of these large corporations do. It's not about money. It's not about investment. It's about understanding the beating heart of your brand and what differentiates that brand from the rest of your competitive market. Because again, if you go just on metrics and proof points, you're really not going to stand out from the crowd because you're Joe's plumber. And then right next door to you is Vinny's plumber. And then Jack's plumber sits down the street and Rachel's plumber is right behind them. What you have to do is figure out what is your trick? What is your piece of the puzzle that reaches out to your audience and, going back to the 3 pillars, provides value for them in a unique way, not value for you. I am the best plumber. I have the cheapest prices. I will clean your pipes better than anyone else. Now, those aren't real sales tips or sales tools. They don't reach the consumer. You have to figure out what is valuable for them and tell them that story. Then, when it comes to the passion, whoever can display the most passion for what they do. Matt, Lou, you guys are phenomenally passionate about what you do. Every time I hear you speak, your passion is what comes through more than anything else. I don't care whether you have the best podcast in the world. You're not going to find 2 more passionate guys about what they do who care more about it. And that passion is infectious. It inspires passion in other people like me, which is why I'm glad to be here with all of you. And then the connection point is, how do you reach out to not only the marketplace, but to the world in general? Lou, you started out with a great point during the introduction. Whether I am telling a story to a consumer, to a buyer, to somebody else within my corporate structure or within my own organization, or I'm telling a story to my child or my spouse or my friend, this is both human, personal, and corporate. It hits you on both a professional and on a personal level. A great story benefits everybody. So if your Joe's Plumber brand can create that value, passion, and connection for your audience, you will be victorious over Vito's Plumbing and Rachel's Plumbing and Scott's Plumbing and whoever else I mentioned a couple of moments ago.
So, Steve, about 40 years ago, there was this very handsome husband and wife, and they were going coochie coochie with their baby, and the mom's going, well, maybe he'll be an accountant, maybe he'll be a lawyer, and the dad says, no, he's going to be a corporate storyteller. How does one become a corporate storyteller? You have the greatest job in the world.
Oh my gosh. All right. So first of all, when you say 40-ish or whatever, I have to thank you for that because it's in fact a lie. It could be a lie. That said, so this was a natural attrition. I was an actor up until I was 30 years old. That's all I did full time. It's how I met my wife. I traveled all over the United States and around the world as an actor. And I made this accidental trip into what in the mid-90s during the .com era was deemed corporate theater. Somebody came to me and said, hey, you're an actor, you make $0 and you got some free time on your hands. Would you like to try this corporate theater thing? And I said, yeah, what the heck, why not? I'll give it a go. And I did it one time. I loved it so much and it felt so natural and organic for me that I did another one and another and another. About 2 years later, I woke up, I looked at my wife and said, guess what? I'm not an actor anymore. I haven't auditioned for anything. I haven't even looked at the theater world. I'm now in this corporate theater realm. But it's because during the dot-com era, everybody, you remember it so well, everybody was an overnight billionaire. My first client was Tivoli Systems, which had been purchased by IBM maybe 3 weeks earlier. And all they were doing was throwing money around left and right. Yeah, great. Let's invest in as many people as we can. That's the era that I came into this during, which made it very, very easy. And then step by step, I paid a lot of attention, listened to people who were far smarter than I was, learned as much as I could. And it just grew and grew and grew. I started my company in 1998. And thank heavens, knock wood, we've been going strong ever since. And that's a whole lot for a 40-year-old, right, Lou?
Hey, Steve, am I getting my history correct? Before the popularity of TV and the commercialization of everything, wasn't Ronald Reagan a corporate storyteller for GE going on these national roadshows?
It's an interesting thing. So if we go back, I love that you brought that up. There are some great shows that you can listen to about currently famous figures or recently past famous figures like Reagan that talk about the way they would pitch for larger brands, usually at smaller internal style shows where you'd have maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people in your audience, and they'd put together huge musical productions, and you had Broadway composers out there creating the stories for these brands, people dancing around as Clorox bottles, and celebrities pitching for these particular companies. I would put them in a slightly different category. Those are what we had a name for those back in the day that we no longer use. So I'm not going to bring it up right now. It will just confuse the entire process. But that was really more tying celebrity or tying entertainment to a brand to create positive feelings about that brand. And I think it was very valuable in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It really started to change after 9/11. The entire world, as you remember, in marketing and advertising began to shift to more credibility, to more going straight to the punch, minimizing investment waste so that you really maximize your marketing message and where your dollars go to create that branding impact. And then by the time we had the economic downturn of 2008, following the market crash there, we really went very, very streamlined. And I think the nature of a corporate story today is much more efficient than the kind of thing that we saw Reagan doing back in his era.
So Steve, let me ask you a couple questions. So if I'm Joe the plumber, as Luigi said before, and I go and I clean your pipes and I fix your toilets, and I don't really know what my story is, can you give us some granular tips on how to figure that out and become a better storyteller and where to start?
Oh, Matt, that's such a cool point. All right, I like to talk about, with any of my clients, I always start with what I call pre-game questions, right? Most people want to jump straight to story. Here's what I do. I know how to do what I do very, very well. I am an expert at it. I've been doing it a lot of years, and I bring a lot of value into the marketplace. And so they immediately go to the granular details of what it is that their company does. So let's take a step back from that. In some cases, if people know and they like Simon Sinek, we'll start to talk about Golden Circle. We'll talk about the power of why. Instead of talking about here's what I do, here's how I do it, and here's why it matters, we flip that entire thing on its head and we start with, why does it matter? Why do I give a damn about what I do? And why should you give a damn about what I'm telling you or trying to sell you on or bring you into? First, I talk about the why, and I get you connected where you say, yeah, it matters to me. I care about it. Now tell me what you do and how you actually get it done. But until you do that, you don't have an audience sitting there in the palm of your hand because you haven't established the upfront connection. So we're Joe the plumber. We're Matt the plumber, right? And I'm going to start with you by saying, all right, let's ask a few pre-game questions. Tell me about the nature of your industry today within your specific marketplace. Who is your target customer? Who else is going for that target customer? What do you think the differentiators are between you and the who else, whether it's one other, two other, 10 other entities? And what do you think the gap is, right? So let's go back. In fact, one of your great episodes you had recently, because I've listened to you guys quite a bit, you had Robin Landa on your show not that long ago, right? Talking about deploying a creative strategy. How do you spread the word about a business? How do you create that WIFM factor, that what's in it for me factor that she is so good about? And she talked about the goal, the gap, and the game, right? Very, very important, very powerful. Discovering what that gap is. Where is the gap in the marketplace? Or what do you think your particular customer in your market, Matt the plumber, Joe the plumber, is missing at this stage? Now let's go back to that white panel van. We show up electricians. If you're out there touting your ability as a plumber or an electrician, but you don't show up for the job that day, or you're late, or you call in with an excuse, or you miss it altogether, guess what? I don't care how good a plumber you are. I don't care how good an electrician you are. You didn't do the job for me. You might be spectacular. So let's ask those pre-game questions first to figure out who we are and what we're all about. Why did I start the company? So if you're Joe the plumber and you decided to hang out your own shingle instead of working for Lou the plumber, who's got a big company and you're one of many plumbers in Lou's crew, you said, you know what? I'm going to step away from Lou. He taught me a ton, and I'm ready to hang out my own shingle and be Joe now. Why? What made you want to do that? Because if it was just money, I want to make more money, that's never going to work with your customer. Your customer can smell that a mile away. Again, you're marketing to the wallet instead of to the human. You have to create real value for people. You have to create real passion in them by showing the passion in what you do. And a great series of opening questions, of pre-game questions, are going to help to get you there. I'm going to walk people through 30 of them, 40 of them. We're talking like an anal exam here at this point. We're going to open up the chassis and we're going to dig around for the parts, and I'm going to get you in touch with a lot of things that may make you uncomfortable. Now let's step up. You're Cisco, you're Panasonic, you're Siemens, and I've got to go in and do the same thing with you. I've got to say to you, why did this company start in the first place? What target was out there? What was the purpose of building up this brand and this organization? Because odds are whoever's in leadership right now, sitting in the C-suite, you've forgotten. You no longer know what the beating heart of the company is. You're too busy trying to eat up other brands or to sell, ink deals, make contracts to pay for your behemoth of an organization. We got to step all the way back and ask those pre-game questions again. We've got to get back to the heart of the brand, and that's how you're going to create the future of your corporate story. Does that make sense, Matt?
Makes a lot of sense.
So Steve, you didn't stop there because you were working for these big companies, but then you said, let me help the everyday person, and you wrote a book. Nothing gets sold until the story gets told. We love books or rhymes. Tell us, what was the brainchild behind the book, and how difficult was it to put to paper? Because you're very smooth, you're very articulate, but there's a skill set with public speaking and another one to actually writing down pen on paper.
Oh, isn't that the truth, guys? I always say people who are practicing to give a speech, to give a talk, to give a sales meeting, whatever it is, say it out loud. Because the way you speak it and the way it's written on the page are two entirely different stories designed for entirely different purposes. When people first came to me about the book, I'd just been out there in the industry long enough, and they're like, you're a really good speaker. You ought to write a book. And I said, okay, that's a book that like 9 people will be interested in reading. I don't see that being of benefit to anybody in the world. It took me a while to figure out what would really benefit the mass number of people and create that value that I tout out there every day, that I'm a huge fan of. I only do now, in this particular point in my life, I only do things that bring me pleasure, value. And I realized that what makes me happiest is not even speaking. It's helping other people to tell their stories. That's where my passion lies. And as soon as I got hold of that, I was like, there's the book. That's what I want to talk about. The next step in that was figuring out, all right, I can't just tell a bunch of my stories because nobody cares about Steve's stories. You know whose stories they care about? Their stories. Again, that's the WIFM. What's in it for me? It's not that people are selfish or self-absorbed. It's that we have to be about our own joy, our own pleasure, our own pathos and ethos and logos that we were talking about earlier in order to find value in something. So I wanted to build out the book to not only help people discover their story. And again, this is whether you're a one-man startup, a very small organization working on $500,000 to $1 million worth of annual gross revenues, or you're a major behemoth organization that's got $500 million or more in annual revenues. I wanted to make sure that it was going to help everybody at every job level, socioeconomic level, education level, location, that everybody could tell a better corporate story very quickly by getting in touch with natural organic elements that they already have within them, but then also give hard examples of how to do it. You're doing it this way now, try it this way instead. So that literally page 1 to page 250 in this book gives people concrete examples of how to actually put it into action, as well as just conceptual ideas of, you should go be better at storytelling. You should be funnier. You should be more personable. Nobody gets any value out of that. So I really walk everybody through it step by step here. And the reviews have really shown that people are saying, yeah, I've always heard that I should do it, but I've never seen how to do it. This book gets that done.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. How difficult is it to unplug. Because I know Matt and I have a very difficult time unplugging. I mean, Matt has his girls out on the sidewalk selling lemonade right now. They're constantly doing sales pitches. My wife and I killed a poor woman with P&Ls for the household. How difficult is it when you're dealing, you're dealing with your wife, like, honey, you don't just eat this risotto. You have to understand the story, the crispiness of the asparagus, the starchiness of the rice. I mean, how do you unplug?
Oh, man. Well, there's this little thing that nobody in the world talks about called work-life balance, right? And I suck at it. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I absolutely bite. I'm terrible. I felt like the worst husband and father in the world lately to my own two girls, Matt. So and they're not out there. They're older. They're 19 and 17 now. So they're not out there selling lemonade at this point. Unplugging, first of all, I don't know how to do it. And if any of you do, please reach out and tell me and share with me. I like to equate it with age. I think that you get a certain point in your life where you realize, okay, I can chase $1, or I can realize that you can always make more money, but you can never make more time. Getting there is a luxury. It's an absolute luxury to get to the point where you say, all right, I either A, I've got enough where I am right now, I'm good, or could I make more money? Yes. But what is the payoff for doing it? And you have to set valuation for your own time. I think it's the same thing with how you invest your dollars as a business leader. You have to determine where is it worth it and where is it not. If you are looking at your average cost to acquire a new customer, and you have a number in your mind, if I spend this much to acquire a new customer, it's worthwhile, but if I spend this much, it's not worthwhile. Go back and ask the pregame question. How much time are you actually investing and how many new customers are you onboarding? And the math becomes pretty clear. Guess what? I'm not doing it in the right way. Time to step back, reconnect with what's actually important, with my family, with myself, with my own reality. Stop marketing for a few minutes. Take some time to go through that pregame questioning, recreate that balance to the point where you're making the investment properly in your brand, in your business, and then you can go back into it more intelligently. But we tend to get into a whirlwind. We're on the treadmill. We got to keep going and going and going and going. So that's what's happened for me at this point. As soon as the book was released, I said, that's it. I'm pulling back. I didn't. I went out on the road in Europe for a month, doing trainings and doing broadcast stuff. But then when I got home, I said, all right, now I'm pulling back. And I actually am doing it. We'll see how long it lasts. The beauty with my wife is that she does the same kind of thing that I do. She actually brought me into the business. She started doing the corporate speaking stuff before I did, and she's far better at it than I am. And so she said to me one day, you ought to go do this. So anytime I get too busy, I look at her and say, you're to blame. This is your fault.
I love it.
It doesn't really work, but
Steve, so Ronnie took his celebrity notoriety from storytelling and leveraged that into politics. What is Steve Multer going to leverage his corporate storytelling? Because you were a successful actor, successful storyteller, successful author. What's next?
Oh, well, first of all, way too kind of you, Lou. I appreciate that. I would argue that Ronnie was first in an actor in Westerns in the movies, and because of that, became a corporate storyteller and then ended up in the White House. My trajectory is going to be slightly...
Do you see the parallels, Matt? Do you see the parallels? I mean, is that a brothership?
I don't know, Matt. Do you look at me and say, that dude could run this country? I swear to God, I can see it.
Hey, these days, I don't know anymore.
I couldn't agree with you more. Anybody. I think we're at a point where anybody can give it a go.
Have you taken a look at the ballots lately? I vote for you twice.
I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to hold you to it. So I'm making a mark right now. That's 2 more little ticks off of my sheet. Good. I've got Lou in there with 2 votes. Here's the deal. Anybody who wants to be in politics right now, I have to immediately figure they're nuts, because who would want to run a country? I mean, my word, you've got to be anybody who says, he seems like he's got a really big ego. Yeah. How can you not? I can be the leader of the free world. Okay. I don't care which side of the fence you fall on. Yeah. You've got a little screw loose somewhere, right?
It's funny when that happens though, right? Because most people say, yeah, I want to be that guy. No, you don't really I want to be Elon. You don't want Elon's life. You want his money, but you don't want his life. Trust me, that guy's not sleeping.
How old are your kids, Matt? Matt, how old are your daughters?
9 and 11.
9 and 11. All right. So I don't know if you felt this way. And Lou, do you have kids?
I have one on the way. Actually, by the time this podcast gets aired, little guy's going to be here.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. That's huge and so freaking cool. And you're going to have a ball. It's great. I'm sure Matt's said it a million times. It's really cool. Here's the deal. when my girls were born, again, this is a long time ago, I very quickly realized how often I would hear from friends who were having kids at the same time, everybody within our circle, oh my God, my kid's brilliant. My kid's brilliant. And I always thought, you don't want your kid to be brilliant. Brilliant is the last thing you want. You know why? Brilliant people don't fit into society. Brilliant people don't align with the rest of us. You know what you want your kid to be? Happy, comfortable in their own skin, confident, feel loved and safe. They'll figure out the rest of it on your own. Forget the brilliance part, right? So I think with your little guy, when he's here, and Matt with your two girls, hopefully they are all of those things, which means none of them will want to seek the highest possible public office.
Yes, exactly. But one thing I do teach my girls and I want them to be is resourceful. I think that is what separates a lot of people. To be able to go out and do their own thing and be resourceful and not have to rely on anybody else.
You can do anything in life that way, right? So what do they say right now? 74% of kids that graduate from university end up doing something that was not part of the degree that they achieved when they were in school. It had nothing to do with that. It's about growing up. It's about becoming resourceful. It's about gaining information, intellect, getting exposure to the world so that no matter what job you land in, you will find a way to make it your own. And I think resourceful is a perfect way to put that. I don't worry about my kids. Wherever they end up, they're going to be fine. They're going to figure out their way. That is success in parenting as well, in addition to as a kid.
Well, I'm still trying to figure that parenting thing out every single day.
It's a work in progress. Here's the other thing I always say about raising kids is it's a series of near-death experiences. The fact that any of us make it to adulthood without jabbing our eye into the corner of that desk or falling off the jungle gym and snapping our neck in two is amazing to me. I think just getting them up out the door and that we didn't kill them, it's like, wow, we did really well. Bravo, honey. Well done.
Hey, Steve, we want to be respectful of your time and we appreciate you being here. Why don't you tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and where they can find your book?
So appreciate that. Thank you for that opportunity. I'm really easy to find. First of all, part of the reason that I named my company Steve Multer Corporate Storytelling is people are like, who? Steve Multer. Good. You look that up, you're going to find me in a million ways. The website for the book is corporatestorytelling.com. And my personal website is stevemulter.com. So very easy to track down. Same thing with the book. If you look that up, it's available in every format on every one of the retailers. So wherever you like to get hold of the book, please go out and buy that and be a part of it. I would love to bring you into that community of my own that I'm trying to build and help. And then the last thing I'll mention is I've got a freebie for every one of your viewers and listeners if they're interested, and for you guys as well. I've created a free e-guide that's called 5 Paths to Passionate Storytelling. And it's an easily downloadable guide, free to everybody who wants it. It's 5 things that you can do right now, today, with 0 time investment, 0 financial investment, 0 change in anything you're doing right now. Add one of them to whatever communication you have tomorrow, and it's immediately going to up-level you. By the time you add all 5 of them, you're going to be in a different stratosphere. So the way that you get that, go to the website, corporatestorytelling.com/guide, and then put in the code SOLDTOLD23. SOLDTOLD23. So if you do that, anybody can download it and you can go after it right away and start being a better corporate storyteller tomorrow.
Well, I know I'm going to go and get it right away, and I think a lot of people in the audience will as well. Steve, one question before I let you run.
Yeah.
Let us know something that we could find you in when you're an actor. Is there a movie laying around? Is there a video somewhere? You know, I was in a music video one time. So what about you?
Okay, wait, what music video are you in?
The New Radicals, You Get What You Give. I don't think I've never said that publicly before.
I love that. And I love that it accidentally got dragged out of you right here in this particular conversation. I'm writing it down. All right, New Radicals, You Get What You Give. All right, cool. You're in.
It'll be on our website in a couple of hours, guys, as soon as I get the IT.
Oh my God. It's like a family function we go to, somebody plays a song. It's just, it's been going on for 30 years. You know,
I think that's phenomenal. All right. So I think as your son is being born, that needs to be playing right there next to your wife while this takes place. Just a suggestion, just an idea of something you might want to do. Just make it ingrained, you know, natural.
Uncle Matthew in action.
I did a ton of television commercials. That was my primary when I was doing the on-camera stuff. I was born and raised in San Diego, so I'm a Southern California boy. Been in Chicago for 30 years now. But most of what I did was commercial stuff, and I've got tons of them on tape, but hard to find right now. As far as movies, I only did 2, and they're so bad that you really should go and seek them out. One is called Beauty Queen Butcher, I am not kidding you. That is the name of it. It's horrendous, but it has gained some notoriety from a fan base that likes really bad, ultra cheap horror flicks. So that's the one that I'll leave you with there. But most of what I did was on stage. My wife and I met playing opposite each other in Phantom of the Opera at a regional theater here in Chicago. So it was mostly stage stuff and musical theater stuff after my television and commercial career was done.
Steve, thank you for being here. And guys, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Been a pleasure. Thanks, you all.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.